Oh, my name is Anna C. Hickey. C is for Carmela because my godmother was Carmela. So I was named after her, and I was named after my grandmother, Anna, on July 21st, 1927. So I had a birthday on Wednesday, turned 94. Anyway, born in Piedmont, and I've never left the village of Piedmont. It's my village. That river is mine and the village is mine. So there, you got that straight. Okay. I was at a graduation party one year with my parents, and I was very impressed because the violinist was there playing the pomp and circumstance of the graduation song or hymn. And I was so impressed with her violin playing that one day my father saw me in the backyard with two sticks, and I was imitating the violin. And he called my mother, Ercilia, ven acá e guarda, which means, Celia, come over here and watch this. And they saw me with this, me playing or portraying to play the violin. And it was then suggested that I start with violin lessons. And I did study for maybe 6 years, 7 years. I haven't played in a long time. I'm now in the process of having the horsehairs replaced on my violin bow because I have since hurt my shoulder and I need exercise in my right arm. And I thought that if I picked up the violin again, I could use my right arm in handling that bow and might be good exercise for me. So that's one of the things that I hope to do while I'm convalescent, which you don't know about yet. But anyway, I wanted college, and my parents could not afford college. I was very unhappy, and wanted to get away from the house, from home. I just wasn't satisfied, not happy, and so I ended up getting involved in getting married. I thought that would take away everything. And so I married a sailor boy, nice, handsome, Irish, German sailor boy. Had 5 children. Firstborn were twins. So here I am, 20 years old, with two babies. And
Crying.
I attempted to try to stop that marriage at the very last moment I had the opportunity. It was the back of the church before I walked down the aisle in this beautiful white lace gown, and so many people in church. And I was crying and asking my father in Italian, Baba, no voglio marriare. Daddy, I really don't want to get married. With that, I appreciate my Italian friends because they'll appreciate this. With that, he hit me with his hand across my shoulder and told me, "Andritza ka mamafati sandwichi patreon. Straighten up, your mother's been making sandwiches for 3 days." So therefore, I got married. So there's a story of the beginning of my life. Anyway, what happened? I had 5 children, fostered 5 children, also from St. Dominic's or St. Agatha's, right? Fostered 3 girls, not all at once, 2 boys. In fact, one is Raymond is now visiting me for my birthday, which was just Wednesday. He's with me for the weekend. He flew in to wish me a happy birthday. That's one of my foster children who we always keep in touch with, and I am his mom. And that's the way it is. And my foster daughter, I'm her mom. I had, and I have 9 grandchildren, expecting my 20th great grandchild. You got that? 20th great, I have 19 now. The 20th grandchild is, excuse me, expected in October. And they are from the age of 1 year old to 21. The 21-year-old just graduated college, and now she's headed for her doctorate. Can you imagine that, huh? The wallet is empty all the time. At a very young age, I appreciated poetry very much. And since then, many years now, I've written a lot of poetry. I spoke to a senior class at Tappan Zee High School when they had the poetry week of the year or special poetry education. And I was asked to read my poems, and I was very selective and read some of the poems. And and one of the poems I wrote that's received quite a bit of attention with some of the organizations I belong to and some of the local papers. It's called The Unborn. Once I wasn't anyone, a speck of life had then begun. I don't have my glasses. While nestled warm in mother's womb, I wondered when and how soon. Seemed like many months had passed while growing firm in nature's grasp. Movement spurred occasionally anticipation, anxiety, pleasant thoughts of life ahead when sudden pain pursued instead. Mommy, what's that probing for? Don't you love me anymore? I never even asked for this. That speck of life should not have been returned me to before begun when I wasn't anyone.
That's gorgeous.
Those children in that high school class were asked by their teacher how they interpreted certain poems. And this one, they got it right. They felt that the placenta was talking, because I always lived on the river here in Piedmont. I'd walk up the hill, and I would walk up not because I enjoyed reading that many books. It was because the librarian, I liked her, and she would feed me apple slices and walnuts. I thought that was the greatest. It's something my mother never fed me. God forbid I should ever say that, but it's true. I was so impressed with a platter of sliced apples and walnuts. But I learned to appreciate the library work. And when it came to starting to think of a new library to replace this one, I was on the committee with Sarah and our new mayor, trying to think of his name, poor
Bruce Tucker?
Bruce. I love Bruce, but that's beside the point. But Sarah and I led the committee to raise funds for the new library in Piedmont. And we raised funds and we built this lovely library in Piedmont. It's painted yellow because we all voted on that color. I spoke at the opening of the new library, and I was master of ceremony. And the last part of my speech, which I'll always remember, I predicted and to telling the group at the library at that time that it would eventually become the
Centerpiece.
the centerpiece of the village, and it has. And I was very proud of that. I remained on that committee for a few years.
On the board.
On the board, yes. And enjoyed what I did, enjoyed the people that we worked with. They still do wonderful. I'm not there, I'm not volunteering for that, but I'm always there to help if I can, you know. And what else? Let me see. The VFW was president for 50 some years. The I don't know. I can't keep track of them. How about let me see what else. Let me see.
Campaigned for tax collector and lost.
Oh, then in 1965, I became very active politically because I'm very proud to say I'm a Democrat, and I want everybody to know it too. That's what it's all about. So I ran on the Democratic ticket and became involved politically, and I ran for collector of taxes in the town of Orangetown. I ran against Adele Goldstein, may she rest in peace, because I lost. and she was very happy. And that night, I called her immediately, congratulate her, and she said, Mrs. Hickey, you'll never force me to run again. And little did she know, 2 weeks later, she died. I never got that position because it was appointed to uh, another person who was not of the Democratic Party. That's the way it is, you know. But anyway, because of that, it was felt that politically I deserved to do something for the party, and I was appointed secretary, administrative assistant for the new district attorney of Rockland County, Robert Meehan. And I spent some many years in various positions because of his leadership. I worked with Governor Carey in the Medicaid fraud area,
Of nursing homes?
and nursing homes throughout the Ninth Judicial District, traveled all over the Ninth Judicial District. In the meantime, all this is going on in my life. Uh, I did not become involved too much in Piermont politics. However, I got to know them personally, and my number one favorite person was Mimi Bryant, who was our mayor at the time. You know, it's when women were not doing these kinds of things, you know. And here we go with our thumbs up. We had Mimi Bryant. She was wonderful. My husband worked as a highway superintendent in the village of Piedmont, and he became very attached to Mimi. Mimi was a wonderful, unique mayor. Everyone in the village absolutely loved her. And she'd come to the house at Christmas time. And nowadays you can't do these kind of things, but she used to bring him as a gift a gallon of red wine. Why she thought he liked red wine, I don't know, because he was Irish. I was the one that loved the red wine, not, but anyway, we got to get more women running things. You know that, ladies, you know, wake up. And they are waking up, and I love it. First 20 years of my married life, I did nothing but rear children. Not only my children, foster children, my sister's children, anybody's children. They know where to go. Even if I fed them tomato soup with grilled cheese sandwiches, I still got these kids all over the place. I loved my backyard because I had a swimming pool, I had a river, and they loved being there. So it was a good place for a lot of fun to grow up, you know. But in the meantime, let's see, I got involved with many volunteer organizations like I needed them, you know, like a hole in the head, you know. But I was very active in the Romanesque Lodge. I was on their scholarship committee, helping them out with scholarships, Tappan Zee High School Italian class, um, helping them with their fundraising, because fundraising, very active in St. John's. I sang my first solo there when I was 10 years old. I sang the hymn, In the Sacrament, Sweet Jesus. I'll never forget that hymn, because when the organist said, Anna, do you want to sing In the Sacrament, Sweet Jesus? I said yes. I was only 10 years old. I had the nerve then to say yes. And I made a mistake, and I remember crying. And the next Sunday, she asked me if I wanted to sing that hymn again. And I said yes, the nerve of me. I went right back at it. And ever since then, I've been a soloist for St. John's Church to this very day, until I just recently hurt myself and really hurt my body, broke my neck. That's why you see me now in this conglomeration of metal structures, or whatever you want to call it. All I know is I'm getting tired of this restriction. Anyway, I joined the VFW auxiliary. I was president for 50 some years, 51 or 52, I lost track. I led every parade because I always had a large auxiliary member in uniform, led every one of them in a parade. I have pictures of me at home. I'm very proud of that. I became involved with the Catholic Daughters. I was officer for many of the positions. I cooked for their annual Christmas bazaar, fed over 400 people, you know. I fed them things like sausage, peppers, and onions, and you won't believe it, but soups, pea soup, wedding soup with meatballs, it goes on, and fed approximately 300 to 400 people. It was a fundraiser. This year is the first year in maybe, I don't know, 20 years, maybe, I don't know, that it didn't happen because I've become slightly handicapped for the only, this is only for a while, temporary, I hope. Anyway, so I'm very active with the Catholic Daughters. We do a lot of great things to help others less fortunate than us, you know. Very active in starting uh, the, the idea of building a new library. Our library, I used to attend and go there when I was a young child. I would walk up the hill because I always lived on the river here in Piermont. I'd walk up the hill and I would walk up not because I enjoyed reading that many books. It was because the librarian, I liked her, and she would feed me apple slices and walnuts. I thought that was the greatest. It's something my mother never fed me. God forbid she ever, I should ever say that, but it's true. I was so impressed with a platter of sliced apples and walnuts. But I learned to appreciate the library work. And when it came to starting to think of a new library to replace this one, I was on the committee with Sarah
Tucker?
Bruce. I love Bruce, but that's beside the point. But Sarah and I led the committee to raise funds for the new library in Piermont. And we raised funds and we built this lovely library in Piermont. It's painted yellow because we all voted on that color. I spoke at the opening of the new library, and I was master of ceremony. And the last part of my speech, which I'll always remember, I predicted and to telling the group at the library at that time that it would eventually become the
Centerpiece.
the
Centerpiece.
the centerpiece of the village, and it has. And I was very proud of that. I remained on that committee for a few years,
On
and
the board.
on the board, yes, and enjoyed what I did. Enjoyed the people that we worked with. They still do wonderful. I'm not there. I'm not volunteering for that, but I'm always there to help if I can, you know. And what else? Let me see. The VFW was president for 50 some years. The I don't know. I can't keep track of them. How about let me see what else. Let me
You
see.
campaigned for tax collector and lost.
Oh, then in 1965, I, uh, I became very active politically because I'm very proud to say I'm a Democrat, and I want everybody to know it too. That's what it's all about. So I ran on the Democratic ticket and became involved politically, and I ran for collector of taxes in the town of Orangetown. I ran against Adele Goldstein, may she rest in peace, because I lost, and she was very happy. And that night, I called her immediately, congratulate her, and she said, Mrs. Hickey, you'll never force me to run again. And little did she know, 2 weeks later, she died. I never got that position because it was appointed to uh, another person who was not of the Democratic Party. That's the way it is, you know. But anyway, because of that, it was felt that politically I deserved to do something for the party. And I was appointed secretary, administrative assistant for the new district attorney of Rockland County, Robert Meehan. And I spent some many years in various positions because of his leadership. I worked with Governor Carey in the Medicaid fraud area because at that time I was retiring as commissioner of jurors for the state of New York. Everyone said for county of Rockland. Well, yes, I represented the county of Rockland, but I actually received my checks from Albany because I worked in the Ninth Judicial District. Most wonderful experience I ever had, you know. The Bosque, I was born on the second floor of that building. That's where the Bosque restaurant is now. That's where I was born. I don't remember when I moved to the house that Joan Gussow lives now. That's where I grew up, in that house. We sold when my mother died and my father died. We sold that house to Joan and her husband. And she's done a nice job. She loves the backyard because she's into that gardening, you know. And we were also, as a child, did a lot of gardening. And to this very day, I still garden, do beautiful gardens where I live now at the factory building, 59 Harbor Cove. I lived there. That's where my mother worked and ate safety in that particular area of the factory. My father worked in that factory. My brother was one of the supervisors there. My other brothers worked there. I tell you, everybody in Piedmont worked there. Now, I never, ever had time to go and see any of the stores in Piedmont. I was the oldest of 6 children, and my responsibility was to take care of those kids because my mother worked at egg safety in that factory, and uh, and I had to take care of the house and the children and iron their clothes before they went to school the next day because nobody had a closet to have clothes in. You had 3 outfits maybe, and that was a lot of clothes. With 6 children, there were a lot of clothes around. So I never had time, believe it or not, to walk down the street and look at the shops. Never, ever. Now, my sisters, they were able to run around all the time because they were younger and they used to run around down the street and Yokel's store, candy store, and meet all the boys. I never could do that. I had to take care of the rest of the family and cook dinners. And so I can't talk too much about what went on in the village while I was taking care of responsibility. I was unfortunate in that my one twin daughter, Veronica, at the Temperance High School, uh, she was on the trampoline performing for the 5th graders. And she and her sister both were performing on the trampoline. And they were both to start college 2 weeks later up in Brockport. But Veronica apparently, Veronica broke her neck, 5th and 6th vertebrae, on that as a result of falling on that trampoline, and she became a quadriplegic. So I was then another part of my life where for 6 years between working and helping her, and I had my sister-in-law to help also to take care of her because she was paralyzed. So she lived with us in our house in Piedmont, which was right 2 houses south of Cornetta's restaurant. We had a room added on to accommodate her deficiencies, an extra bathroom. And the Rotary Club, I was very active, president of the Rotary Club in Piedmont, and I was very active as president of our Rotary Club. And the Rotary clubs in Rockland County, and they're still all very active, we closed ours down because we lost our members. They were moving to Florida or they died. And it was worth having these meetings where you'd only have two people coming in. And you never knew when someone was going to drop in, which was very nice, but it didn't work out. So the Rotary Club in Rockland County decided to have a fundraiser to help us with the expenses of my daughter's, bad luck. And they ran a movie at the Orangeburg Movie House. There was a movie there many years ago.
Mhm.
And they ran a movie, and the proceeds to be given to her for the expenses in helping her. She attended St. Dominic's College for 2 or 3 years and was about to graduate from that college a year after, but never made it. She died in May. Uh, I've forgotten what year, but she died when she was 22 years old. So we lost her, and she never had a chance to get to college with her sister, who was already up there alone. It was tough. So that's one of the heartaches in our marriage. Nothing we could do about it. I haven't said anything about the war days. My father was what the heck was he?
Warden.
Yeah, he was a warden. He used to walk the streets when it was the blackouts. When the blackouts, couldn't see anything. Everything was dark. Shades were dark, lights were out. And one night, my sisters and I were sitting on the bed, and we saw this man walking across the street on the sidewalk, and we didn't know, but it was our father, my father. We didn't know it. And my sister whistled because she could always put her two fingers to her mouth and whistle like a boy would whistle. And she whistled, and he answered, and he said in Italian, "Vatten get inside." That's what that means. Get inside. He recognized us because we were laughing. And here it was pitch black during war times. But the soldiers were all over the streets. And we had to be in by 9 o'clock. And it's the first meeting I ever got from my father, because he was a nice man. I loved my father. And someday, if you want, I'll show you his picture. The most handsome man in the world. And that's why I like boys. That's why I like men. But anyway, um, uh, I forgot what I was saying. I'm forgetting these days, you know that.
You did very well. You did very well.
Anyway, during those 4 days, I had the soldiers communicate. Some of them were my favorites. One would send me silk stockings
Wow.
from Japan. Silk. Because in those days, you
didn't
couldn't
have
get
that.
stockings.
Didn't have nylon.
Didn't have nylon, no. And I remember I used to in the summer really tan up because I wanted my legs to look tan. And he would send me stockings. Can you imagine? And so I did a lot of communicating with soldiers because they were all friends. And then we lost our 13 boys in Piedmont that I knew so well. I knew them personally. Uh, it's hard. It's hard to explain when they died. My neighbor. It was a summer day. My neighbor. I heard her screaming and crying and screaming and crying, and I knew then that her son Peter had died. And when Peter left, we had a big party the night before. And when we all said goodbye and good night and goodbye, he kissed me and he said to me, and I never really knew this, I never knew it. He looked at me, looked down at me because he was tall and handsome, and I always liked him as my neighbor. He said, "Will you wait for me?" And I looked up at him and I said, "Yes," not realizing really what he was asking. He died. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that night, never forget hearing his mother screaming. And I knew then, uh-oh, Peter's gone. It's really something. So all these boys left Piermont and they grew up with all of us, all of us. We all grew up together in our backyards and they all came to our house because we had the backyard river, you know, and anybody that could come would be there. And my mother would cook for all of them. She would extend the dinner spaghetti pasta salads with anybody. She would tell us to call, and we couldn't get away with it today now, but she'd say to us in Italian, "Call the black ones from up the hill, tell them to come down, I got pasta. Call them, call the black ones, the Valentines." And my brothers go up and tell them, "Come on down, my mother's making pasta." And all these nice black children that we grew up with, went to school with, everything was wonderful. And they would join us in eating the pasta and swimming in our river. I'll tell you, they thought they were at a resort. And we made it known to them that this was Piermont. It was a wonderful town, wonderful Piermont, wonderful Piermont. Really, really, really. There'll never be another Piermont in this wide world. And all I can say is I'm so lucky to be a part of it. So lucky to be a part of it. And to Lynn and Charles Henderson and his family, because they were our neighbors, our original neighbors, yes. They lived in the house next door. They bought my house, and that's how I was able to buy the condo